Good morning, everybody. It is a huge delight and privilege and honor to be with you today. For Pastor Joel and for the team here who have invited us, we really don't take this lightly. It is a joy to be here, and also feels like we're standing on really holy ground as we have a conversation around some of these topics. So great to be here. And even just to see the warmth and the friendliness as you greet each other and share with each other, that is something that is so special. And sometimes we can forget that. In the midst of all of the busyness and everything else we're doing, we can forget just how beautiful it is to meet as brothers and sisters, greet each other, know each other, care for each other. So thank you for the welcome for me today. As you seek to live out this mission to share God's love through Christ by loving God, loving people, and making disciples, I just want to say a huge well done for being courageous enough to look at a topic like finances and stewardship. It is a hard topic to talk about. It can be a topic with a lot of pressure, a lot of difficulty, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. And one of the reasons we want to talk about this is to try and lift off some of those pressures, bring things into the light. So well done for being willing to wrestle with that. I know I'm a stranger to you this morning, so I do want to bring greetings from my family who are all back in Hamilton. My wife, Leanne, who's just finished a night shift with paramedics, and so that's why she's not here. She is definitely going to bed with little notes left all over the washroom and other places, encouraging our children to help tidy up and get everything sorted for whenever Mum wakes up and I come back. We'll see if they're successful or not. But Leanne is from Saskatchewan. She was with Youth for Christ, and she went to Northern Ireland for a little bit of time, met me, and I ended up keeping her in Northern Ireland for a lot longer than she'd planned. And in that time, we've got these 4 little cubs with us. So Eden, who's our eldest, is 16, Mally is 14, and they've been joined by the 2 boys since we arrived in Ontario, because we were told in order to be seen as proper Ontarians, we would need to provide young men to try and help the struggling sports franchises of the city. So we won't mention what happened last night. We'll just leave that to one side. But some of you might already have guessed, this accent is not actually from Hamilton, Ontario, where our head office is. So I'd grown up in Ireland. I was a community pastor. In serving our local community, meeting newcomers who were working in different jobs in our city, in being able to walk alongside others who were struggling, that's really what brought me into contact with Christians Against Poverty. Maybe you've never heard of the organization before, and so just as a quick overview, our heart is to walk with people who are struggling, who are feeling overwhelmed. And we do that by making sure that we inspire and equip church communities to really look into this area, to walk alongside people facing financial insecurity with practical tools and innovative solutions. Because we want people not just to be able to look at the numbers of finance, but also to think through what is my heart's posture towards finances. What's happening in my mind, in my emotions? And that's why it's beautiful to be here today. And even the songs that we sang together in worship, those songs all talked about how Jesus is with us, how God wants to lift off any pressures, pains, that his arms are open wide for us. And so as we do jump into this today, I really want us to remember that if anything starts to feel a little bit uncomfortable, or maybe some of those emotions well up inside us, just remember that the Father's arms are open wide for us. beckoning us to come closer. The reality as well is that sometimes when we talk about finances, we start to think, well, maybe I'm the only one who's struggling. It's just me. I don't want to say anything. But all of the research and surveys and studies would say 42% of people living in Canada say money is actually their number one source of stress. And that's more than all of the people who say employment is my biggest source of stress, or relationships. This is more than twice the number of the folks who say that. So it is one of the biggest pressures we face in our society today. And so if you are feeling that pressure, so are so many other people. You are not alone. It isn't you trying to do this in isolation. And it means that we see a place where there's a lot of pain that needs healing. And it's a place where there can be a lot of darkness, and we want to bring that into the light. And help me a little bit with some parenting. It's an opportunity to either encourage me in my parenting or to encourage our children that sometimes dad isn't that helpful. The kids need to get up for school in the morning. The alarm has gone, they need to already have left the home, but nobody has got up. And so instead of talking to my teenage daughters, knocking on the door, having a conversation, sometimes I'll just flick on their light switch in the room and walk away as I hear some of the screams and the frustrations of the light going on. Anybody ever done that before? No, we're not seeing. Oh, there's a couple of younger individuals nodding, and parents maybe not so much, but the reality is, if you are in darkness and then light comes on, it is a bit difficult. It is tricky. We pull the covers over our heads, we maybe cover our eyes because it's a little bit of a shock to us. And so even when Jesus says, hey, if we've been walking in darkness and we've seen a great light, that is beautiful. And there's also a little bit of tension on that journey from darkness into light. And that can be true for us as well as we think about some of the areas of our lives where we want to invite Jesus. Maybe it's a little bit tricky because we'd actually prefer to pull the covers up a little bit, hide a little bit longer. The Father's arms may be wide open, but maybe we're going, I'm just not ready yet. And particularly in an area like finances, that's how we can feel. And then we can add on top of that some of the cultural challenges that we might face. Utang Nalobi. Hopefully I've said that right. At school, I couldn't get French, I couldn't get German, so, languages are not my speciality at all, but that's a pressure for us because we come then with a debt of gratitude. That means that there's an assumption and a pressure and an encouragement. It's a mixture of all of those things to care for others. Pakiki Pakapwa. That is also something that when we're in this together, the celebration, the Kapwa festival that is going to happen is a beautiful, shared coming together. And that is a wonderful thing to do. And it looks different in different cultural settings. That is awesome, and it's a wonderful encouragement, and it can also come with a level of difficulty or pressure or stress sometimes as well. Bayan Han, again, just adds another layer to how do we view finances. It isn't just put in a calculator and some dollar bills and maybe pulling up our checking account on our phone. It's not as simple as that because there's so many other areas. And that's why Jesus so often speaks to the whole person, because it's much more than just one single individual issue. And that means that here today, the second the word finances or financial stewardship is mentioned, you might be thinking about regular remittances that are getting sent. that are helping others, that are dealing with emergencies and struggles, that you're here and there's massive, massive pressures and pain points and hurt and restoration that is happening. And so you are supporting people in that journey. Maybe it's education support, emergency medical support, housing support, special occasions, emergency aid. And that layers on a whole bunch of things to think about that in Canada, as a very individualistic culture, where it's my budget, it's my money, it's my bank account, that can be a struggle, because if we see money as a shared resource, a family resource, a cultural resource, it's not just mine, it's ours as a family. And so that raises even more questions and things to wrestle with as a community, particularly if there's expectations attached to that we would provide. And some of the images that we might have of, if somebody's living in Toronto, that's an amazing city, everything's nice and simple, everything's wonderful. But we're wrestling with the tension of, well, the housing costs, food increases, gas, transit, travel, all of those things can sit on our shoulders really heavy. And it can create a difficult mix. And apologies if I'm going to get this wrong, but it can be even spicier than a Baikal Express, which one of my neighbors talks about that a lot, tries to encourage me to eat that. She's from the Philippines originally, and every single time I try and take a bite, it is beautiful, it is amazing, it is incredible. And because I'm Irish, I start to sweat and hiccup, and it is incredibly embarrassing. And I have to leave and try and find some milk to drink. So those pressures, those stresses that we wrestle with are natural, they are normal, and they are places that Jesus wants to step into and bring hope and healing and walk with us through what can be an incredibly difficult journey. Because if we think about our budgets, maybe that means that there's expectations that can limit our own personal savings for the future, for a home for you, for emergencies you face, or maybe around retirement as well, planning for the future whenever there's emergencies and we need to send support. How can we plan well for what's ahead? And maybe we run the risk of debt as well, whether it's the line of credits, credit cards, high interest loans, because we want to get support to areas and we don't have enough at this stage, and yet we want to meet those expectations. And the difficulty in a place like that is that if the enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy, loading shame upon us and guilt upon us and keeping us in darkness is an incredible tactic to use. And that's why we want to bring this topic into the light. That's why Pastor Joel and others are thinking through ways to say, how do we speak into this well in our cultural context? That's why when we partner with the local church, the materials, the conversations, everything else can be adapted to the local context. Because you will show amazing grace today as we share. But you don't really want a bald Irishman telling you about Filipino culture on a regular basis. Does anybody really want that? No. Because you know your culture and you know those family connections and you know what that feels like and you can speak to that way better. And Jesus, who loves the diversity of the church and loves all of the different cultures and the celebrations and the way things look different, recognizes that too. And so, those verses that we read, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Jesus encourages us that when the pressures mount up, when we are struggling, he is there for us. But what he also says is there is a yoke still for us to carry. There is stuff for us still to work through. And when we think about easy and light, it doesn't mean that it's just a simple thing we can pick up and put off. It means that it fits us well, that it recognizes who we are, the culture we're part of, the responsibilities we might have at a certain stage in life. And that yoke from Jesus is crucial for us, because otherwise, other people, other institutions, other ideas will load their yoke upon our shoulders, and that's when we can feel utterly overwhelmed, where the pressure is too much, where the burden is too heavy, where we can never take those steps forward. And I just want to encourage you today that if you are weary and burdened, if that is how you have come this morning, maybe you sat at home thinking, should I even bother? Let's pull the covers up a little bit more. I just want to stay in bed. That one of the things the Lord would love to say to you today is that he is here for you. The songs we sang, these verses, it's an invitation from Jesus to say, look, I see the weariness. I see the burden. I've seen the tears that you have shed in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. when you've woken up. And I want to step into that with you because you matter. Your life, your journey, your story matters. And if that is you today, I would just encourage you to chat to somebody, talk to somebody here, get some prayer, have somebody sit with you. Think of the small groups. It can be hard to go, okay, I'm going to take a step towards community because it's vulnerable and it's difficult and it's a challenge. And it is beautiful and compassionate and caring. Yes, it takes some time, but that is a beautiful investment in your soul, in your heart, in your mind, in your spiritual health. And that's one of the reasons that Pastor Joel and the team here are so encouraging you and eager to see you be part of those small groups so that we can be set free, trust in him and follow him. And how do we translate some of those verses into life today? Well, for some of us, over the coming days, weeks, months, and it takes time. It's not an instant thing. If it's finances, it will take time. But for some of us, maybe we need to look at our income and recognize that all of those pressures that we carry, all of those cultural pieces that we carry, maybe we're not in a season right now where we can carry all of that yoke and that burden. And maybe there are conversations that we might need to have. Now, those conversations can be challenging, they can be scary, they can be difficult. And that's why the Lord says, if you're weary and burdened, come to me. I want to bring you some rest and some peace, and I want to give you my yoke to carry. And that could be for a season. Perhaps it's saying, hey, there's certain things I can do, and there's some things that I can't at this stage. And that can mean hard and honest conversations with family and community members. Our wonderful neighbor who makes the spicy shrimp noodle amazingness that I love and struggle to eat, she is in her 70s. Her husband recently had to go into long-term care. And so she had to speak to some family members and just say, hey, look, this is a really different season because if I was with you, we would be doing this together culturally. Me and my senior husband, who is in decline in health, we would be in a home and we would all care for each other. But because we live in Canada, he's going into a nursing home for long-term care, and that is expensive. And it's taken a lot of the income that we have, a lot of the pension income that we have. Now, some of those conversations she had were difficult. Some people weren't happy. and there was pressure, and that was hard. And some of the other conversations, they said, yeah, we were kind of expecting this for a number of years. We're surprised you didn't do this earlier. And so in the midst of having the difficult conversations, some of it was grace-filled, other places was a bit more of a challenge. But at the end of it, she was able to say, I've done what I need to do. I've had the conversations I've needed to have. And it feels like a weight has been lifted off of my shoulders. Maybe for some of us, that's the stage we're at, where the Lord is encouraging us to share those burdens. Maybe in some places, it's recognizing that Canada is an amazing place to be, but with a quite high cost of living. Rent, food prices, gas prices, flights, those are all large expenses for us to deal with. And maybe we need to adjust some of the spending to be able to take the next step forward. As a church community, you're living out your vision to proclaim the life-changing message of Christ to newcomers, caregivers, refugees, migrant workers, and families in the community. Being able to encourage others who might newly have arrived here, who are facing those pressures at a time when rents are so sky high. Whenever our economy is going through different challenges and difficulties, being able to say, hey, we can walk alongside you in this, not because we have all of the answers, not because we've got all of this figured out, but because we understand the pressures and the difficulties and we will do this together, is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And maybe that's where we can help highlight some of the realities of life in Canada for others. The challenges faced might be much greater than what we anticipated. I know for our family, we came from Ireland. We sold everything we had, we moved here and thought everything was going to be very easy, and quickly realized, nope, that is not the case. What seemed like a significant ability to kind of do life in Northern Ireland became a real struggle to get by. And that was hard for our family to walk through. To find out that we used to have a home, now we would be renting in a very different setting with young kids in a triplex. That was a big change. To go from we had a vehicle and we could drive around to, well, we've got no vehicle and we're not going to be able to afford one. To look at pieces of fruit and think, how is that so expensive? I have to pay what for potatoes? We grew them in our backyard. All of those little pieces are challenges for anybody arriving into a new community. And you can speak into that with great wisdom. To go to the store and try and get a phone and realize, I, as husband and father to these two little girls, can't even get a phone right now because I'm not recognized in the Canadian system, was a little bit embarrassing and awkward. Especially doing that with Leanne's parents beside us because they'd come to welcome us. Think, oh, I'm glad I've looked after your daughter so well that I can't even get us a phone to keep in touch with you. The sense of shame and embarrassment and awkwardness in that moment was huge. And we can speak into that for others in our community and the wider community. And I had to take a deep breath and go, Lord, are you actually sure that I am meant to be here, or did I get a little bit mixed up? Should I be somewhere else? And I was able to share that with friends and talk to them, and I had to spend time renewing my mind, trusting in the Lord once again, because to come here was one thing, to live here on a day-to-day basis was a completely different story and journey and adventure. You know, in Matthew chapter 9, Jesus has been walking around and he's seen many, many different crowds. There's been amazing miracles happening, lives radically transformed. And he goes and there's a huge crowd in front of him. And it says, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Sometimes I can feel cynical, I can feel annoyed, I can feel frustrated or irritated. But Jesus' approach was one of compassion. And it wasn't just a, oh, that's okay, never mind style of compassion. It was this deep-seated, from the heart and the depths of his innermost being, sense of compassion and love and kindness and grace and mercy towards those he saw. Such compassion towards them and such compassion today towards you. If you feel harassed, if you feel helpless, Jesus doesn't look and say, you should have got it figured out by now. You should have sorted things yourself. He knows that we as sheep need a good shepherd. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. Beautifully, Pastor Joel, the team, others of you who have gathered here over the past number of years have seen the Lord do amazing things with you and in you and through you to serve this community, to care for each other, to be that family together. And I just want to encourage you as well that if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you are looking out at the crowds and the challenges, and instead of compassion, your love battery is a little bit drained, it's a bit depleted, and you're frustrated and you're annoyed, take some time away with Jesus. Don't grow weary in doing good, because that is a possibility. One of the things as I chatted with this wonderful neighbor of ours was, she said, I don't want to feel this way because I'm so annoyed and frustrated at family. I'm so annoyed and frustrated with the circumstances that I find myself in. I hadn't anticipated being here. And she'd grown weary in doing good. The conversations helped her recover her strength, recover her energy. Let the Good Shepherd guide you. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Pastor Joel and the team here, they've looked and they recognize this as a big issue, as a key issue. One where the enemy does seek to steal and kill and destroy. And that's why they want to speak into this topic. Because when we speak into it, things can look different. For Preet, he said that sharing was incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging, incredibly hard for him, but he found that it was a relief to finally have somebody helping him. Just walking so he wasn't on his own. For Crystal, it was an opportunity that she could dream again. She could look to the future. The reality is that Jesus came to set us free. If the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. And yet we live in a time where maybe it's a line of credit, maybe it's credit cards, maybe it's cash stores, where there can be that sense of the borrower becomes slave to the lender. But if Christ has come to set us free, how do we step into that fullness of freedom instead of being dragged into a place where we are slaves to the lender? Perhaps that's something to think about for us as well, to wrestle with, to look at, to think about some of our choices and how they impact us. Making sure that we can pay off any of those debts that are there. Trying to take that next step forward so that we're not enslaved. Because when he sets us free, we are free indeed. And this topic is hard. It is difficult. And it's a beautiful, beautiful topic to think about. Because Jesus also said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so as we think about our finances, the money that we've been entrusted with, stewarded with, part of it is saying, how do we match that up with our values culturally, as a church, as a family together? How do we step into what the Lord is calling us to? What are we going to treasure? What are we going to lay hold of and say, this is where my passion is. This is where my values lie. As a church community, you are a beautiful representation of Jesus to each other and to the community. And so I just want to encourage you that your identity is in Jesus. Your identity isn't in your bank account. What sits there at the end of a salary stub. And much as we face the pressures, it's not in how other people see us either. Our identity is in Jesus, the one who comes to set us free. So I just want to encourage you to think about this community you are part of, your brothers and sisters in the Lord here, and those around this place who desperately need to meet a group of people just like you, to be loved, to be cared for. There may be hard conversations. There may be times when we need to think about our future decisions. But as you do that, your spiritual family, the generosity to the local church, is something that we're called to do and be part of. I just want to pray for us on this journey, recognizing that it is a hard one, recognizing that today there's been little pieces kind of thrown up, and there might be parts of that we want to catch and walk away and pray with. Part of the conversation with Pastor Joel and the team here is really thinking about how do we create some practical steps forward for people as well. And if that is something that you really need, I would encourage you to come and chat to me. At the end, I'm going to hang around so that we can have any conversations. I'd love to pray for you, love to sit with you, love to chat with you. But let me just pray for us first. Father, I thank you for these brothers and sisters today, these children of yours, that you look at and you smile over and you have joy over. And you look and you say, I have come to set them free, each and every one. And for those of us where that is a challenge right now, that we don't feel much in the way of freedom, particularly maybe in our finances, where there are many demands and where we feel weary and burdened. Lord, I just pray that above all of my words, would you speak to people's hearts? Would you take a step towards them? Would you embrace them? Would you let them know how much you see them today? And would you bring a sense of hope, bring a sense of joy, bring a sense of freedom? Would you bring that peace that passes all understanding to our hearts, to our minds, to our souls? Thank you that you love us. Thank you that you see us as being helpless and harassed sheep, and you choose to be the good shepherd to us. Lord, would you help us see you that way as well? Give us fresh eyes to see you as the one who races towards us and embraces us. Yeah, we love you, Jesus. Thank you.